Hello everybody, it's Scott from WhatCulture.com, joined by Josh.
Hello.
And we're going to cover the biggest thing that every single person will be talking about, even though we're still recovering from Avengers Endgame as well.
I can't take all of the shocks, all of the disappointment, all of
I'm going to quote an old Peter Kay stand-up. Guess who's dead?
Who's dead? He's dead. Not only is he
He's
dead, he got, I think we can say he got snoked. Is that
I like the idea that getting snoked can be a term now.
Yes.
Because it's not just Mr. Snoke himself who was iced before the rest of his plot potential could come to fruition, but now the Night King is also dead. Now, if you wonder why I'm speaking in hushed tones, it's because the room that we're talking in, a lot of people who haven't seen Game of Thrones are just round the corner, and we did put a public service announcement out for them to put their headphones in or whatever. But you don't want to be that guy.
because it is a huge surprise.
It is a huge surprise.
Did you expect it, Scott? I did not expect it.
I'm not going to lie, I didn't expect it, but
Right.
as the battle kept getting more and more ridiculous and the stakes kept getting raised, and to the point where after he brings everyone back,
Yeah.
and it is literally just unwinnable, my head, and because obviously we knew the rules that if you got rid of him, everyone else was connected, I kind of just thought, well, the only thing that can happen now is
Yes,
this.
it needs to go down in the final third.
Yeah. I don't know if that was the thing you were going to go for. Like, did you expect it?
I was the same. I was like, even when it happened, I kind of didn't expect it. Once he grabs like Arya, I was just thinking, oh god, she's dead. Even though the sense of escalation had gone so far that it had to happen, but it was a huge shock, and I'm surprised, and I have no idea what the hell is going to happen now.
So this is why we made this video, because for so long now, since the beginning of the show, we've had so many different theories about the role of the White Walkers, the role of the Night King, places like the Land of Always Winter, like Children of the Forest, all these ancient sort of magical tendencies that the show's kind of had the underpinnings of it, and so I think they want us to think this way. I would hope so, but I guess we're just gonna have a conversation around that because so many wider prophecies were surrounding the Night King, his true role. One of the biggest rumors was that the Battle of Winterfell was a ruse and that he was going to fly right over and go down to King's Landing, and one of the biggest assumptions is that he would be the guy on the throne at the end. Yada yada. All of that is obviously completely done away with now.
Yep.
So I guess my first talking point is, what do you think of so much plot potential being snoked?
Well, this is the thing, and I'm kind of trying to reserve judgment until I've seen the season as a whole,
Yes.
but it really feels like it's been set up as the first 3 episodes were dealing with the threat of the Army of the Dead and the Night King, and the next 3 are going to be like sort of Cersei and figuring out who's actually going to sit on the Iron Throne. So it does feel like there's a lot of kind of potentially wasted potential there.
A little bit.
I mean, we still don't know about like the Night King's origins properly. There were lots of teasers in this episode, and his connection to Bran. A lot of those things were touched upon, but we didn't get any kind of concrete answers. And I thought the Night King would be around for way longer.
I wonder
than he actually
if
was.
we know that he was created by the Children of the Forest to
Yeah.
sort of help defend against the men or whatever, and like obviously he went a bit nuts and kind of just gained a whole bunch of powers, including being impervious to fire. By the way, just kind of has it.
Well, here's the thing,
But-
because this is what a lot of people have been saying on the old Twitterverse,
Yes.
is that, who knows, maybe he could have been like a Targaryen back in the day because he's impervious to the Dragonfire. I know we've seen in the show that might just be like Dany's thing,
Yes.
because we've seen Jon get burnt and stuff, but not by actual Dragonfire.
Maybe. I think it's a strange plot device. I get that it completely subverts expectations and it gets everybody talking. It is one of those big water cooler moments, and by doing something like this, because it is so brazen and it is so ridiculous. In the moment, when he finally got stabbed, I kind of leapt up and went yes, because it is so stupid, and now they've kind of wrote themselves into arguably a corner that they need to get back out of again. But it does mean retroactively tackling the subject matter that they were building up to a potential reveal for. I thought he was maybe going to speak to Bran or something, or kneel before him or something like
Yes.
that. Something that would have sort of alluded to their connection, because even the fact that he got this far was almost happenstance. Obviously, if you go down the Green Seer route, then he knew it was all going to happen or whatever. But yeah, I think it's weird in a narrative sense for them to then go back and unpick. Well, actually, here's why he was here, and this is why this happened.
Yeah.
and whatever. I don't know if that's ever going to be as satisfying as watching it unfold in real time.
Well, this is it. This is where I'm kind of like stuck in it, because when you're going into it, there were lots of wild theories. It's like, well, it's like Bran the Night King, and
Yes.
that might still happen, but those theories had like concrete answers, and I think that's what I was kind of searching for. But at the same time, maybe it's better off that it is a mystery, and like there are a lot of there is so much lore behind it that you can kind of make up your own idea. Maybe the threat works more when you don't know exactly what it is.
Maybe. I think if that was, because that was the thing, G.R. Martin was asked, I think he was talking about overall sort of metaphorical interpretations of the story once it's done.
Yeah.
And he said that there was a heavy climate change message in there. So everyone started assuming that the White Walkers were just this walking interpretation of climate change. It's coming for us all regardless regardless, we need to deal with
That's
it. If that is, but then if it ends like this, then the metaphor doesn't work anymore because you can stab climate change and it's fine. So I think that's a bit of a weird sort of route to go down. One of the things that sticks out to me, and this has been the case since like across all of last season, is obviously we know that they're ahead of the books now, and I wonder what the literal reality of the relationship between Martin and DB Weiss and David Benioff is, because I just have to imagine that they're being given notes because it's not written yet.
Yes.
Like Martin hasn't hasn't written the rest of the book yet.
Yes.
Nor has he read it, which was the word in my mind wanted to say. But because of that, I have to imagine that Benioff and Weiss are just going off notes. Like this happens, then this happens, then this happens.
Yeah.
And you guys connect it however you want because they've already said the book's going to end differently anyway.
That's it. In my head, right? This is completely
or the path to get there. Sorry.
Yeah. In my head, this is completely unsubstantiated. But I think
We've had lots of sleep, by the way.
Yes, we have.
But yes.
I think like he's kind of waiting for the show to finish, and then he's gonna be like, right now I get to do my thing, and this is how I really planned it all out.
I do wonder how much he feels like an overall sense of authorship and control's been taken away from him. Like, he's been very jovial about it, but he was asked on one of the red carpets or whatever, just what would you have done? He said, well, I would have had another 5 seasons, and he's like, and it's like, okay, and plot lines like this feel very contracted.
I was just about to say that's an interesting comment actually, because we've had like we've got a 6-episode season. I know the ones to come are as long as this episode, but it does feel like they're blowing through a lot of story. And like you said, the Night King moment in the moment was really impactful and really great, and it looked lush, but the long-term sort of implications of it are kind of difficult because now you assume this is going to be split up into sort of 2 arcs. Like I said, the Army of the Dead and just dealing with them, and then dealing with the Iron Throne and Cersei. You've got like stuff with Dany and Jon to sort out. Dany and Sansa, who's going to is the North going to remain independent, or will they bend the knee? We've got like a lot of the political stuff to come. Which James Hunt made a great comment when I was talking to him this morning when he said, "How can you sort of go back to that once you've literally faced death? Like that stuff kind of seems."
Is
like
that
insubstantial
not,
in a way.
That's the pivot though, because then all of a sudden the Night King isn't this sort of immortal or this like unstoppable thing. He is stoppable, but it's a wider comment on Cersei's motivations and Cersei, like how much you just can't trust Cersei, because even when faced with the inevitability of the destruction of the world, she still won't help you. She's still out for herself. So was all of this just in service of restoring the families and saying like where they would be if push came to shove? You have 80% of them unite together, whereas the Golden Company and Cersei and whatever just say no, we'll wait. And it's all a giant philosophical extrapolation of their mentality.
Which would make a lot of sense.
I'm surprised I managed to say that well, but carry on.
Don't get me wrong, like I'm so pleased Cersei is now going to be like the big bad of the show. I think she's a far better developed character. I think she has way more depth to her than the Night King, but like the Night King's like pure evil, this force of nature, and now I just can't get over the fact that what the hell are Dany and Jon, like it would be kind of weird if they just go back to start squabbling over the throne and stuff. It feels like they've dealt with problems way beyond that, and to go back to it. And I guess it does kind of go into what you said, like kind of that fallibility of like the human spirit and like the little political games that they end up playing, even in the face of this abject terror that's coming for them. But I don't know. So I'm just rambling here. What's interesting is that the director of this episode, I can't pronounce the guy.
Oh, go on, give it a shot.
It's Miguel Sapochnik.
I haven't actually seen his name written down in a while, but either way, dude did Hard Home, dude did Battle of the Bastards, dude is a good dude.
He mentioned that he wanted to direct this episode, the 4th episode, and the 5th episode, because he viewed them as one complete story, which brings up a lot of questions. How would that be a complete story, those 3 episodes, if like, because this seems like very definitively the end of one arc in the beginning of another. So the fact that they're connected gives me hope that there may be some left field turns on its way.
Plus, on that regard, just in terms of more White Walker stuff, and with Bran, like in episode 2, we got one of the only times that Bran just literally just sat down and just said, he's coming for me, it's because of the mark.
Yeah.
I can see the past and the present, but not the future. Because there's all sorts of theories at the minute that Bran orchestrated this exact thing, and specifically told Theon, like, thank you for your service and everything, to deliberately make him charge, to free up the seconds that would have allowed Arya to come in for the kill. I don't subscribe to that because he can't predict the future. But I mean, what is even predicting the present anyway? That doesn't even make any sense. But that idea that, like, you know, if that's true, that this is actually like the catalyst and this isn't the end, but the beginning of the full Night King explanation, then I guess the teaser for next week though centered on Cersei.
Yeah.
And so I just wonder, whether we're going to go full circle back to how it all began.
So that's it. Do you think this is the last we see of him, or maybe not as a physical threat, but his story as a whole?
I mean, mean, it
I think it's
depends what that original dude was. Because when we saw the flashback with the Children of the Forest, he is just a guy who seems to be held up against his will, and he's getting stabbed with the dragon glass. And it's like, you know, if they're going to go back into that time, I mean, nothing's stopping Bran walking back and actually figuring it all out.
Yeah.
Or literally some character for the first time in Thrones sitting down and just going, sorry, but what do you
Bran,
know?
what's going on?
What do you know? Because we kind of got that with Tyrion, but we didn't really get a full. The audience didn't see it; it cut away.
Yeah.
But I'd love someone to sit down and be like, right, we've survived the dead. Can you just what?
Yes.
What we've just went through?
You know what, we might, because he did spend a lot of time in this episode walking about. Like, so he could have been digging up something to reveal in the next few episodes, but we have no idea. It's like the lingering things, like him and the Night King, like, kind of like staring at each other. It feels like it should have amounted to something a bit more, but it's all implication, and I wonder if it comes back up. My gut says no, but I hope it kind of does.
I can't think of any overall stories or narratives that have successfully filled in a character, like, meaningfully after they died. Like, I just don't know how you can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll satisfy the fan theories and stuff if they sort of go back into it. But yeah, speaking of Bran, that could be a whole separate video, how little that man did. Just sort of, I'm just flying around, just for an hour and a half. Like, what are you doing? But that's the thing. Maybe they can go back to that and say that he was having a conversation with the Night King, because the first time that we see him is Bran walking into a bunch of ravens, flies up to the Night King, and then Night King does like a video game box art thing.
Yeah, he
sort of does a bit of that.
I like that.
He was alright. Yeah. And then we go back to, you know, him, and that's always the thing, is that you assume that Bran has this sort of wider master plan, and I kind of hope that relays back to conversations with the Night King. I guess the overall question to wrap it back around is, how important do we think the White Walker history is to Game of Thrones, or was it always a Game of Thrones, specifically with families and factions and that kind of thing?
Well, I don't know, and I'm quite biased on this, I must admit. When I first watched the first episode of Game of Thrones back in the day, the thing that got me hooked was that added threat of the White Walkers and like, the mystery behind them. Like, I loved all the other stuff, but that came with time, whereas the initial hook was this wider, maybe more conventional threat, but it feels like it's always been a part of it, but now it kind of feels a little bit wasted.
It's strange. It's like if you took the walkers out of The Walking Dead, then what would those character motivations be left with? And you know, what do they have to do to get to that point because of the catalyst that was the walkers in that context? You know, and what does it mean to remove a zombie threat from a zombie show? Because that's ostensibly what they played on. There's a great element of horror in this fight the whole way through, and it's like if you take them away, then maybe that is something that's unprecedented. Like, I can't think of zombie fiction where the zombies suddenly get cured or go away, and what do we deal with in the aftermath?
Well, it is interesting that you said earlier, like, it would be great if they used as sort of this conduit to explore character motivations. Like you said, like, the vast majority of, like, the Seven Kingdoms sort of united and to fight this threat, but Cersei and her Golden Company and etc. was, like, nice and safe at King's Landing, and they didn't, and that says more about their own personalities than it may do about, like, the wider story as a whole. Maybe that was all just in service of deepening those characteristics and those personality types.
Maybe. I mean, it obviously provides fuel for yet another rumor, theory, whatever, that, like, Jaime's going to be the one to bring down Cersei, because he went through hell to survive.
Yeah, he
managed to keep Bren alive and everything else. To then go back to the person that was supposed to have your back and didn't, then that can obviously factor into the next few episodes. It is strange that we have 3 more full episodes and things feel like they're moving at an insane pace.
I mean, considering, like, the length of them, that's like 4 hours worth of content yet to come. More or less the entire story. Content. It's all content
to it
now.
all as content.
It's all content.
But still, I mean, like, the amount of things that we kind of assume we're going to be more stretched out across the rest of the season, and if this is the pace that they're setting on the 3rd episode, the halfway mark, then I would hope that, like, if this is the beginning of a trilogy of episodes, that still leaves a finale on the end of it.
Yeah, so, you're right. You're right. To be fair, I have no idea where the show's going to go. In truth, like, I thought this was going to be stretched out way longer. I expected this. Like, a lot of people are saying maybe in episode 5, maybe
the final showdown.
The final showdown. Yeah. But apparently that's just going to be the last war between Cersei and the rest.
So maybe we've already seen the Song of Ice and Fire, because there was very much a lot of back and forth at that point. But let us know what you think down in the comments. Did you expect to see this coming, and now that it has happened, do you accept it, or do you think that they've kind of made a bit of a mistake? Let us know what you think. But for now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
I'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.